Hi friends. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So I've been having some rough weeks, probably a month or two, just in general with, what goes on inside the old Caitlin brain. And so I decided that today I think I want to dive into my domestic violence story. For starters, I started going to therapy in June of 2019, and right now it's May 2020, so it's been less than a year. I'm actually not going right now because of the pandemic, and don't think that's helping. But when I started going to therapy, I was diagnosed with PTSD. I also have anxiety, and the PTSD definitely exacerbates. If I'm pronouncing that right, who cares? That anxiety. And I have definitely had a very hard time with it as of lately. I actually, as of probably about 2-3 months ago maybe, started an antidepressant / anti-anxiety, which is supposed to help with the PTSD symptoms as well as the anxiety attacks I feel constantly. It was getting to a point where I actually was having an attack daily, once every other day. It was pretty aggressive. So I started that, and the PTSD stems from my abusive relationship with my ex-boyfriend, who actually is the father of my child. So recounting memories is a really important thing for PTSD, to recount the trauma, because it kind of brings it back up and allows your brain to process it. And I haven't really talked the story out loud recently. I want to be open. I want to talk about my issues, my past. I want to be a voice for people. I want to be somewhat of an inspiration if I can when it comes to standing up for yourself, putting yourself first, just those kind of things. So I wanted to kind of say it to the camera, and maybe it'll also bring me some comfort to talk about it. For the sake of the story, I'm not going to say my child's name. I'm not going to say his name. It's not my job to say who he is, what he is, If you know me, you know who I'm talking about, and I'm not going to say his name. So for the sake of the story, I would like to refer to him as John. So I went to high school with John, and I did not ever communicate with him in high school. We did not speak. We did not even look in each other's directions. It wasn't something that we even explored. John actually was dating a girl on my soccer team for a really long time, and that is the only real reason why I knew who he was. Then, graduated high school, went off to college. Summer going into my junior year of college, I matched with John on Tinder. So John and I matched on Tinder, and I think I waited a couple days and then I messaged him first, knowing he went to my high school, and I was like, so did you go to high school with me? Like, really? You didn't really try that hard, Caitlin. So John and I started talking, we started hanging out. This was in the summer, so by July something, we were officially dating. Once we started hanging out, we spent every second together. By the 4th time we hung out, literally the 4th time we hung out together, he told me he loved me. I was definitely shocked by that. I said it back. I've noticed that I say it back to a lot of people out of obligation. I don't know, doesn't matter. So I said it back, we started dating, and then I think we had been dating about a month when I needed to move back into college. I was an RA, so I had to move in early. It was August 21st would have been our 1 month. So it was somewhere around there, shortly after our 1 month anniversary. I moved into college. It didn't go well. He did not like that I was there. The first time he actually visited me down there, we had just run into somebody that I had hung out with previously, if you know what I'm saying. And he realized that and tried to break up with me in that moment. And we ran into this person in passing on a sidewalk. It wasn't like we spent time with them. We didn't shoot the shit. We didn't do anything. We just passed them. And past is the past. I can't do anything about that. So like, you need to break up with me over that. And he kept me up until probably 3 a.m, just fighting with me in a different room in private, and just like trying to tell me that he couldn't do it and that this wasn't going to work, and he couldn't handle me being away and all of this. He definitely started drinking more. Also, when I moved into college, there was a lot of times where he would send me, Snapchats of him drinking whole bottles of wine. He would post the pictures of them on Instagram about drinking a lot. One day I remember, it was in September, so I was like maybe 2 months into a relationship, not even really. And he was at a friend's house, like shotgunning a crazy ton of beers. It was like 20 something. And he sent me a Snapchat literally a Snapchat selfie of him vomiting and then proceeding to shotgun more beers. Like, it was just a little excessive. Also, for story's sake, he is 2 years older than me, 2. So at the time I was 19, right? No, I was 20. I was 20 and he was 22. So, I kind of tried to meander my way. I spent every weekend going back home to see him if I wasn't on duty as an RA, if I wasn't busy. There was one weekend I stayed at school and I went out with my friends and I had a lot of fun, and it turned into him trying to break up with me. There was a lot of possessiveness, which I didn't really realize at the time. Like, I spent every second with him, and if I didn't, he would get upset. The stuff like before the abuse, I don't really find. The physical abuse, I don't tend to remember, and then it really escalated when I got pregnant. So trying to recount some of the stuff that happened before that is a little difficult for me. I think I just kind of like brushed past it. But if, say, I said I'd be somewhere at noon, or I'd be picking him up at noon and I got there at 12:15, he'd get very upset with me because I was at 15 minutes late. However, if he wanted to go hang out with his friends and he'd be home by 9 so I could be at his house for when he showed up at 9, I would try to contact him and be like, hey, you're going to get home at 9? And he wouldn't talk to me. Be like, just kidding, I'm home at 10. But I wasn't allowed to be 15 minutes late. You know what I mean? So it was just kind of those things. I would get in trouble by him if I was on my phone. If I used my phone, if I answered my friends, if I did anything on my phone, it was a big deal. I wasn't supposed to be on my phone. But yet he would lay next to me and stay on his phone all night. All night. And I would just have to stare at it with him because I couldn't pick up my phone. If I went back to my house, for example, so if I came home from college for a weekend, I would drive straight to John's house, which he lived with his mother. So I'd drive straight to his mother's house with my laundry basket and everything. I wouldn't even stop at my own home. I would go and stay with him, and I'd only go home to do my laundry or if we were fighting. So if my family watched me walk through the door, they knew that something was wrong with our relationship and something was going really poorly. Those are just some examples of things that happened. The manipulative, controlling, emotional abuse portion. It obviously gets worse, but just to give you a little hint. On our 3-month anniversary, I hadn't posted a photo of him on Instagram to say that, it was our 3-month anniversary. And he freaked out. It was like the worst thing I could have done to him was to not post a photo. God forbid somebody thinks that we're not together for 3 months, I'm not sure. So to make it up to him, I had to get some like crazy editing app. I like edited this fancy photo of us. I posted this big long thing about it and like put it on my Instagram and just like poured my heart out to him and just tried to make it better, but it wasn't enough for him. He was still very upset with me. And that kind of seemed to be the theme of everything, is just like I needed to just show everybody how amazing he was all the time. And he had this really charming, funny personality that a lot of people really fell for. And, it's hard to think back to that and just like think about, I don't know, it kind of makes you cringe to think about the fact that there was that underlying control and manipulation underneath all that charm that is just so almost infectious. Like, he just made you feel like really good, like, oh, you're into me, you know? So he was super charming and everything, and always had these funny snap stories, and just had to be like this really, really funny guy and look like he was living this like amazing life, and everything he did was just perfect and all of this. But there was definitely some mental things going on underneath that I don't think he really wanted anyone to know about. And, you know, there would be times where he would be like crying on my chest, like visibly crying, and I'd just be comforting him. Or, you know, I'll get into some stuff later that happened that was pretty aggressive. I'm sorry if I'm saying a lot in this video. It's just, there's a lot of thoughts. So November, sometime in November, I don't know the date. I really don't. But I was at his house, and we had like made a little fort. We like pulled the mattress off his bed and put it on the floor, and was just kind of like making a fort and just like being cute and trying to do something different, because all we ever did was spend time in his bedroom. I wasn't allowed, it wasn't preferred for me to leave the bedroom and go into the kitchen. I never hung out in the living room. I never hung out with his family. I stayed in the bedroom. I went to the bathroom and I went back to the bedroom unless he told me that I could go out there with him. And then if he was done, I needed to also be done and go back. He'd be like, hey, all done, let's go. And I would go back to the bedroom, and that's where I spent all my time. I would drive him everywhere. Sorry, I digress from this November story, but I do remember once I had braces at the time, and lingual braces, so they were on the inside, so you couldn't see them. I went to my appointment to get a retainer made or something, and he was so angry at me because either I sat there and I waited for the retainer to be made, or I left and did my other errands and came back, and he was with me, and I chose to leave and come back later. And he was so angry at me. He was threatening me. He was telling me to drop him off in the middle of the highway because he didn't want to be in the car with me anymore, because God forbid I was stupid and drove from one town to another to do errands just to go back and like waste 2 hours just sitting there when I still had all these other errands to do. Like, it just didn't make sense. But he was so angry, reaming me out, telling me I was a terrible person, I was awful, like all these things. Just weird things like that. So in November, I was with him and like, you know, hanging out in the fort, doing our cutie pie little thing. And I don't know what set him off. I really don't. I don't remember. I don't know if I said something that irritated him, or if he said something and I responded, but I don't know what happened, but he was frustrated. So I was laying on the mattress and he was kind of straddling me. Like, his legs were on either side of my like stomach, you know, and like sitting on top of me, kind of like you would if you were like on top as a woman, you know. Is that visualizing? Is that visual working for you? So he was on top of me and he looked at me and he said something about how he would, you know, just slap me across the face. And I was like, oh, please don't do that. And he pulled his hand back and he slapped me. And I was shocked. I was like, oh, please don't do that again. And he pulled his hand back and he slapped me again. And I was just utterly shocked. And he looked at me and he goes, a little smirk. He goes, well, that made me feel better. And just rolled off of me and laid next to me like nothing was wrong with that. And I was not sure what to do. I kind of like suppressed it, probably out of fear. And eventually we ended up fighting about something else that night, and he kicked me out. Very common. We fight and he tells me to get the fuck out. I go home, whatever. But that night was a little different because I felt like I was just abused. I was just hit. I was asking not to be hit, and I was hit. I didn't know what to do with that. So I remember I drove to my home and I was sitting in my car in the driveway. I had low gas, so I couldn't leave. I was supposed to go back to school the next day. It was obviously Saturday, and I was supposed to go back to school Sunday, and I couldn't or I wanted to go that night. It was midnight, and I called my friend and I was like, what do I do? And she was like, you come back, you come now. And I was like, I can't, I don't have gas. No gas stations are open. Like, I have to go to sleep. So I went to bed. I woke up the next day and we were still pretty bickery, upset with each other. It was getting to be the time that I needed to leave to go back to school. And so I drove over there to go see him and to kind of try to figure out what was wrong. And we were sitting in the car, we were talking to each other, and I was like, hey, I don't know, and these aren't quotes because I don't remember what I said. This was so long ago. You know, this was 4 years ago at this point, 4.5 years ago. Sat there and I was like, you know, I don't know what that was, but it kind of felt like you hit me. Like, I feel like you hit me. And he looked at me shocked, and he was like, you think I would hit you? He's like, I wasn't. You think I hit you to like hurt, to abuse you? That I wasn't abusing you. He was like, oh, I didn't abuse you. If you think that I hit you, then this relationship is gonna have to be over. And he like got out of the car like all like mopey and like, you know, stood with his head on the hood, like with his arms crossed over him like this, like so upset. And I had to like get out of the car and walk around to his side and be like, no, like don't do that. Like, we don't need to break up. Like, it's okay. Like, you didn't hit me. It's fine. It's fine. It's really fine. Little did I know that was the start of what would soon be my worst nightmare. So he had told me a long time ago, the girl he dated from my high school that I knew, he dated her for 4 years. And he had told me that at one point he made some sort of motion and she flinched and like could have sworn that he was going to hit her. He was like, obviously I wasn't going to hit her. She just like overreacted. And, you know, I never really thought that was like a red flag. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I didn't think that was a red flag. You know, and he also exhibited other abusive behaviors. So abuse isn't like the physical abuse is not just being physically abused. You know, it's the threats, it's the fear, it's the physical actions, and also emotional abuse, but it's the actions that they take to put you in a state of fear and like you need to protect yourself or just like cower in order to stay safe. And, you know, he would punch doors. He at one point punched the closet door and it fell off the track. One time the lights were shut off and we were bickering about something ridiculous and he punched as hard as he could the area next to my head in pitch black. I couldn't see what was happening. Like, you're punching next to me and I don't know where your fist is gonna land. You know, he would punch all sorts of things. There was a time when he punched his car so hard during a fight with me that he dented it and then ran up and got in my face. And, you know, there was a lot of things that he did that were definitely abusive behaviors that I wasn't really noticing. And even after the first time he hit me, I had said, like, it doesn't count. I drove back to school that night and I went to my friend's room and I actually slept in there because I didn't want to go back to my room with my roommate. I was really upset. My best friend and my other best friend, they roomed together. I was an RA, so I had to live in a different building by force, essentially. And I stayed in her room and I just kind of explained what happened. And they were like, Caitlin, that does count. Like, that is called abuse. And I was like, I don't think that's what he meant. Like, I don't think he did it on purpose. I don't think he wanted to actually hurt me. I think he was just messing around. And now, like, he's really upset. I'm not sure what to do. And, like, he tried to break up with me. And, like, I can't do that. And, like, all these things. And, you know, we ended up making it work. I remember I came back from Thanksgiving break. And I was going back home. And I was feeling really bad. Like, really down. And, like, just not okay. And I've had moments like that before, but this was like especially bad. And I remember he would always try to like convince me, and I'm sorry to my family before I go further into depth because you're going to hear way too many things that you don't want to hear about somebody that you love and care about. And not see me in that way, but he would always say that he wanted to finish inside of me, and I'd be like, no, no, no. And one day I just felt so bad that I didn't even fight it. I was just like, whatever. Like, I don't care anymore. It'll give me a reason, you know? Like, that would be like a saving grace at that point, you know? I don't think I've ever really admitted that to anybody, so it's kind of hard. But it was more of like a saving grace for me. It was like, it gives me something else to live for, you know? And that happened a few times, and then I finally kind of like got out of the slump, and I was okay, and I didn't want that to happen anymore. I was like, what a stupid thing to do, you know, because he would do it, and then I would be like, okay, like next day I'd be like, dumb idea, plan B, literally, go get it. So I think I did that a couple times with him, like using plan B. And that was my own fault for saying that it was okay. I mean, no, don't blame yourself. Abuse, manipulation, still a struggle sometimes. Always going to be a struggle forever. So flash forward to, say, December. And by say December, I mean flash forward to December of 2015. I was coming home from for winter break, which is like a whole month long. It's really long in college. So I came home, and I like obviously went straight to his house per usual. You know, he was a weed smoker, and I'm not much of a weed lover. I don't smoke it. I don't like it. I don't want it. Now it's a deal breaker for me, just from experience. Maybe someday I'll get past that, but for right now it's a deal breaker. Also another deal breaker is MMA. It brings me a lot of discomfort. I shouldn't say it's a deal breaker because I've had a boyfriend since then who did that, but he would perform like MMA moves on me and not stop if I asked him to. So like if he had me in like a choke, he would hold it, and if I said stop, he wouldn't always let go right away. And so now looking back, I correlate, maybe not fairly to some people, but my brain correlates the idea of MMA with abusive behaviors. And I'm sorry if you love MMA, it has nothing to do with you, it's just from my experience. Please don't take offense. Also, if you love weed, good for you. I just don't like it. So he smoked weed a lot. I didn't know what else to do because he always wanted to be high, and I didn't really like being around it. So I finally, I think it was actually Christmas Day. So I come home on December 18th. Christmas Day, I had said like, hey, do you think you could not get high tonight? Because it was Christmas, you know? So like he had gotten high every day for 7 straight days now at this point. And I was like, can we just be sober tonight? Can we just like be with each other, like actually with each other, and just be together? Like no substances, 100% us, just all here, all mindset, everything. And that made him very angry. Not only that, but I got to his house that day, and his whole family was so excited to see me for Christmas. They wanted to all give me gifts, and they were giving me presents, and I was opening them, and we were all so happy, and I was giving them their presents, and like it was so cute. And the second I was done opening the last gift, he was like, okay, let's go, and just whipped me back to the bedroom. Like pulled me entirely away from them, and I was not allowed to enjoy like the feeling of Christmas, you know, with them. And it was the first time being with him that was happening. It was 5 months of our relationship, you know, like it wasn't very long. So I was in the bedroom and I was like, hey, can we just not smoke tonight? And by we, I mean him. I didn't smoke with him besides like a few times. Once he told me that if I smoked with him, he would quit. So I did. And he didn't quit. So yeah, I didn't really love it that much. And so he got very upset with me and got like really creepily quiet. I was like, what? He's like, get the fuck out. I'm sorry? Get the fuck out. It's Christmas. He's like, yeah. He goes, let this be a lesson to you to never tell me what to do again. Now go. I was like, okay. So I grabbed my things. I left the presents he had gotten me. I was just like, screw it. I grabbed what I wanted to grab and I walked out. And as I started walking out, I was like, he's following me. This is weird. And I looked and I was like, you don't need to walk me out. And he goes, oh, I'm not. I was like, okay. And I go through the door, and this is the example I was telling you about. He walks ahead of me to his car. So his car's parked here, my car's parked behind him. He walks ahead of me to his car, reels back, punches it as hard as he can, makes a giant dent in the thing, turns around, runs to me, gets that like big puffy thing in his chest and just gets in my face, like above me. He's taller than me. I'm 5'10", but he was like 6'2". He gets in my face and he's like breathing, looking like he's about to beat the living shit out of me. Like so mad. And I was just like, whoa. And I looked at him and I go, this is so fucking unfair. And I walked around him and got in my car and went home. There was another time in school where, you know, he had looked at me at one point and been like, if I ever need to fight someone, you just got to get in my eyesight and like stop me. If I can see you, I'll stop. It's like, okay. So I tried. And, you know, there was a kid in my building who was pretty disrespectful to every single person there, to the RD, to any other RA, everybody. And he really liked to ride a scooter inside for some reason. I'm not sure what the reasoning behind that was. Probably just to be a jerk. He really liked to ride a scooter. So he was riding a scooter in the hallway when John was there with me. And I looked at him and I was like, hey, no. Like, you don't do that. And he goes, what's the magic word? I was like, excuse me? Like, I'm your RA. Unfortunately, I'm kind of like your mom at school. You don't talk back to me. If I tell you to get off, you get off. You don't ride it in the building. That's a rule. So I literally looked at him and I was like, excuse me? And he said something and John got real mad. John spun around, started going after him. And I didn't know what to do. I like jumped in the way. I like jumped up. I was like, hey, stop. And he eventually calmed down, turned around and left. And then I had to talk to the kid and be like, I'm sorry, that wasn't supposed to happen. But like, hey, let's just be respectful and not do that. That's not okay, blah, blah. So, you know, I'd seen how angry he could get in a moment. And then, you know, on Christmas Day, he's like in my face doing the same thing, but now I'm the one he's aiming it at. I'm not the one in the middle trying to like stop him from doing it. I'm now the problem. I think it was January 6th. I think that was the date. I hadn't had my period yet, and I had spotted a little bit, so I thought I was in the clear. Joke's on me. And I wasn't sure what to do, so he was convinced that I was pregnant. I was like, no, there's no way. There's no way that I'm randomly pregnant right now. I was like, there's no way I'm pregnant. And he went to work. He was a waiter. And he was talking to the people at work. And he was like, what do you think? You know, like, this is the thing. Like, these are her symptoms. And they're like, oh, dude, she's pregnant. So he went and he bought a pregnancy test. And he brought it to me. And he told me, like, hey, like, go take this. It was wicked late at night. His whole family was asleep. So I went in the bathroom and I took it by myself. And every box has 2. So, you know, take 1, take 2nd, just to make sure, whatever. False positives, not a thing, but one can hope, right? So I took the test, and so if you don't know much about pregnancy tests, you take little pregnancy tests. There's like a little tip that you pee on. You like hold it down there, you pee on it, you pull it out, you put the cap on it, you let it sit for 3 minutes, you come back, it'll tell you if it's positive or negative. I peed on it, and I pulled it out, and it was already positive. 100%. No doubt about it, positive. I didn't know what to do. Not only is it not the first pee of the day, it was late at night. You're supposed to take it first pee of the day to like get the most accurate test, but it was so positive that I pulled it out and it was positive. There was no waiting game. There was no period of time between like 3 minutes of, is this gonna happen? What's gonna happen? It was like, oh fuck. And I remember he was like ecstatic. He was so happy, he was so excited, and I was sitting there and I was just like, I don't know what to do. And I had seen like some stupid sweatshirt at Marshall's that I thought was cool, that was in the men's section. It was like $60, and I was like, why would we need a $60 Nike Marshall sweatshirt? It's so stupid. And he brings me back into the bedroom and goes, look what I got you. Like pulls out this like $60 unnecessary sweatshirt and is like, I knew it was going to be positive, so I got you a little gift. Like, now is not the time for a gift. Now is not the time to spend $60 on a sweatshirt I don't need, and I don't know why you're so excited about this, because I'm a 20-year-old woman dating you for 5 months, still full-time in college, only going to be in my second semester my junior year, and still another whole year to deal with. Doesn't seem like this is a bad thing. Oh, and we both live at home, have no money, and no way to support a kid. Seems fine. Seems fine. Sweatshirts are definitely a good idea right now. A++, but. So for like about 2 weeks, I kind of struggled with what to do. I hadn't told anyone. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell my friends. I just kind of kept it to myself. And, you know, the night before I went back to college, once again, I have to move in early because I'm an RA. The night before I went back to college, I pulled my mom into my room and I kind of told her, I don't remember what I told her. I looked at her and I was like, hey, I'm pregnant. She was like, what? I thought you wanted to like do things with your life. And I was like, fuck, you're right. It's like, I do. This isn't really what I want. So I finished packing. I drove to John's. And I was laying there with him, and for some reason, he would just get like so excited and like put his head on my stomach, and it drove me crazy. It's like he had created this like mindset of mine that like I needed to have all of his attention and all of his affection, and like it was I needed it. I had to have it. And now all of a sudden he was paying attention to my stomach, and something in my head was like, this is awful. This is terrible. And I would get so irritated. And also like, that's kind of how I was my whole pregnancy. Like, nothing's moving in there. You're just touching my body. You're not touching a baby. You're not touching a kick. It's like 4 weeks in. Like, no, don't fucking touch it. Like, I hated that. I never wanted people to touch my stomach when I was pregnant, because it's like, unless the baby is actively kicking, you're just feeling my body, and that's weird. Please don't touch my body. Anyways, not the point. But I could like feel this sense of like discomfort with him like touching me and being excited about this like embryo essentially inside my body. And I was like, I don't want this. It's like, I don't think I can do this. It's like, what? It's like, I don't think I can have this baby. It's like, what are you talking about? It's like, I don't know. I can't. And he was like, well, then we can't be together. If you get rid of this kid, we cannot be together. Why? You think I can be together with, like, be with you after you killed my child? I'm sorry? Like, what are you talking about? And he, like, was begging me and crying and, like, please don't do this. Please don't do this to me. Like, I want this. Like, just have the baby and I'll take it. You don't even have to be involved. Like, just let me have it. And I was like, no, absolutely not. Like, if I don't want to do this, I just don't want to do this. And I am pro-choice, if you can't tell. Let somebody live how they want. If they want to have a baby, great. If they don't, they don't. Like, if they want to put it up for adoption, they do. Just let them decide. It's their body. So I ended up leaving his house that night, and I went back home and I laid in bed with my mom, and I just remember crying a lot. And talking about how I didn't know if I wanted to do it. I didn't know if I could. I didn't know what to do because, you know, I had this like big fancy plan and dream for my life, and it wasn't this. And I didn't want to get stuck in this like really unfortunate situation and not be able to do the things that I've always wanted to do. So I went to bed that night, and I woke up the next day and I had to drive to school. So I started driving, you know, and John was texting me and saying some things that, you know, kind of led to the idea that like he's okay, and like if I don't keep the baby then it'll be fine, and he won't actually break up with me and all this stuff. But I called my sister on my way down to school because my mom said that that would be a good idea, and I was talking to her on the phone. I told her, and I was kind of explaining like what I was feeling, and she was like, you know what, Caitlin, she's like, you do want this baby. I can tell by the way you're talking that you do. She was like, you know, you've already made a decision. Like you, in your heart, you know what the decision is, and you've already made the decision to go through with it. And I was like, yeah, you're kind of right. So I had a very fleeting 12-hour moment of like, I need to do something about this. And then, you know, from there on, there was no doubt in my mind. The only problem was that I started pushing him a little bit more to grow up a little bit. You know, like I still had to finish college. I still had all these things I needed to do. We needed to now support a kid. We needed to have better finances. We needed to save money. We needed to move out. We needed to do all these things. And he didn't handle that very well. It started to get progressively worse. You know, our fights would get really bad. He would constantly break up with me, you know, and nobody at school knew what was going on with me. I didn't tell anybody. I was pregnant for a really long time. I remember once I was fighting with him on the phone in my room, but I couldn't like actually fight with him on the phone because I didn't want my roommate to know what was going on. So I like hid in the bathroom and was like whisper fighting with him on the phone about what was happening, and I got so mad. I took my phone, I was sitting on the floor of the bathroom, and I bashed it off the ground, and I picked it up and grabbed my phone. The screen had bubbled. It was like this. So I took my hand and I like pushed it back down and just like prayed, and it worked. But there was a big crack along the middle of it, and I told him that there was a big crack, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna buy you a new phone. I was like, oh, no, like I'm on a really specific plan. At the time it was Straight Talk. It's like through Walmart. It's like, so you have to like buy it outright. It's like $500. And he goes, oh, okay, then I'll get you a phone and put you on my plan. And I was like, oh, no, you won't. Like, you don't ever pay your phone plan. Like, I need a phone. I can't just not have a phone. He would go like a month and not pay his phone bill and only be able to talk to me when he had Wi-Fi because he just couldn't afford a phone payment. I don't know. So I was like, there's no way I want you to buy me a phone and then not have one. Like, I don't want to just keep living life without a phone. And he was pissed and broke up with me for that for about a day. You know, so there was like every other day was a reason to break up with me or just like pretend like we needed to break up. Whatever. So for my 21st birthday, I had plans with my mom and her boyfriend at the time, now fiance, to go to Vegas. Which, what a wonderful 21st birthday when you're like 12 weeks pregnant and heading off to Vegas. Yay. So my birthday is in February. It's February 11th. So February 14th is obviously Valentine's Day. The weekend of my birthday, so my birthday was on a Thursday that week, and then we didn't have school because President's Day on Monday. So I was able to go to Vegas for a long weekend right around my birthday, which also meant I was gone for Valentine's Day. Big no-no for him. Also being in Vegas, big no-no for him. So the whole time I was there, I remember him fighting with me constantly. It's like saying really terrible things, making me feel really terrible things, like threatening me, telling me I was awful for doing this. I was ruining our first Valentine's Day. Like I spent my birthday away from him, God forbid, like these crazy things. And I was like, I don't understand. And then, you know, that was all weekend. So I left on a Thursday, came back on a Monday or a Monday. All weekend, it was just him just like reaming me out, making me feel awful, saying all these terrible things about me, whatever. Finally, he had sent some sort of message about, I was in line, I remember, going through security to get back on the plane to go home, to fly home. And he was like, the only reason we're together is because of that baby. I was like, then why are we together? Like, we don't need to be together to have a baby. I was on the plane for 6 hours, and as far as I knew, we weren't together. I landed, and I don't remember a time frame, but essentially I landed. I went home, but it was snowing. So I was supposed to drive back down to school that night, but it was snowing, so I couldn't. So I waited, and I missed my classes the next day because I couldn't drive down to school in the middle of a snowstorm. So I stayed home, and he started to get really, really dark, and the things he was saying was just sketchy and dark and weird, and he was threatening to hurt himself. He was threatening to kill himself. He was threatening to, I was like, I'll come see you. And he's like, you can't, it's snowing out. You're going to crash. I was like, okay, then I'll have the cops come see you. He goes, then I'll run at them with a knife. So they have to kill me, threatening all these things. And eventually he sent me a Snapchat of blood on the sheets. And I was like, what's going on? He was like, oh, I cut myself. I was like, why? And it was just really weird. He was like, I think he was trying to manipulate me into staying with him. And so that night we went to bed. He was okay when I went to bed. I woke up the next day, and I was missing my classes, so I went over there, and I brought hydrogen peroxide and some stuff to clean his cuts that he had done to himself. And I sat there with him, and he cried, and he was sad, and I cleaned out the cuts, and we just comforted each other and just tried to make it better. But I was supposed to head down to school. I needed to, because I had duty. I had to had an RE meeting, so all the people in my building sit down for a meeting, and then I was on duty until midnight. So from 8 to 9 I had a meeting, 9 to 12 I was on duty. So I needed to go back down to school. So I needed to leave by 6. Obviously I was late because he didn't want me to leave. So now it's 6:30, and my mom was like, hey, are you still around? And I was like, I actually am. I haven't left yet. She's like, okay. John's house was 2 miles from mine. She was like, stop by and grab some food on your way down. I was like, okay. So I was like, hey, I gotta go. And he was like, why? I was like, well, my mom made me dinner. I'm gonna go get it. And instantly, a mask was put on. He was all the emotion just drained. And he was like, why wouldn't you tell me you needed to eat dinner? It's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, if I'd known you wouldn't needed to eat dinner, I could have just made you something here so you wouldn't have to leave me and go see your family instead. Okay, well, it's too late now. My mom's made dinner. So, I'm sorry, but, I gotta go. And he was wicked pissed. Essentially told me, screw you, fuck you, bye. Okay, so I left, and I went to go get the dinner, and the entire drive down, it's only an hour and a half, but the entire drive down, he is just saying terrible things, talking about how awful I am, and how he can't believe that I would do something like that, and I am just a nasty person, and that he never wants to see me again, and all this stuff. And then I'm getting Snapchats. I'm like, what are you sending me Snapchats of? And they were videos of him taking a knife and cutting open his forearms, and videos of the blood pouring, and videos of him smiling. I don't know how to, it was an angle where you're selfieing, there's blood, and it's just down low so you can see his face, and he's smiling, and it's just blood pouring out of his arm, and he's just cutting open his arm because I went to go get dinner at my own house. And it was awful. I don't think anything has ever made me feel so absolutely mentally destroyed in that moment. And I kept driving. Obviously I had to get to school, but I was a wreck. I was bawling. I couldn't keep myself together. I had to call my ARD, which is so the RD is the person who runs the building. ARD is a grad student who helps the RD, and then the RAs was myself and a bunch of other sophomores. I was a junior, they were all sophomores. My ARD was actually my freshman year RA, the male RA in my building my freshman year. So I knew him really well. He didn't know what was going on because nobody did. And I called him and I was like, I need, like, is it okay if I don't come to the meeting? Like something's just really going wrong. I can't do this. And, you know, can I have somebody cover my duty if somebody can? He was like, yeah, if someone can. So I texted them and I was like, can anyone cover my duty? Like, I can't get back. They were like, yep, sure. So I got back to school and I called my best friend, who at the time I still hadn't told I was pregnant. And she had our other best friend drop her off in the parking lot and sit in my car with me. And I like spilled the beans and I just told her everything that was happening and what was going on and how things were going, and, you know, that I was keeping this from her and I was struggling, and like right now was not, I was not doing okay. Once again, I ended up staying the night in their room that night. And the next day, or the next couple days, somehow everything was fine again and he was back to normal. We were dating, we were together, and what are you talking about? Nothing's wrong, everything's happy, I love you so much. Please don't leave me, blah, 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 we'll make it work, I love you, blah, blah, blah. So, and I just kept saying yes. So that was like middle of February. Jump to beginning of March. He had just gotten worse. Like I said, like from January to March, like things are just like a downward slope of rough. And in March, I was at his house one day and I had told him, I was like, I need you to stop spending money on weed. It's like, you need to cut it out. You're smoking every single day and the amount of money you're spending on weed is extreme. And we need to save money. So stop spending money on weed. So Friday night, I got there and he was like, hey, guess what? I don't have to spend money on weed anymore. And I was like, oh. He's like, yeah, look, I bought this thing. It's a pen. And it was like a $20 pen. And I can get dabs from my friend for free and put it in there. And I'm not spending money on weed anymore, but I can still get really fucking high. What the fuck? That's not some magic loophole. Just fucking quit smoking. Like, you're a fucking idiot. I'm pregnant. Like, why do we need to rely on something that literally has no addictive qualities to it, yet somehow you can't quite kick it? I just don't get it. So we went to bed that night and I was frustrated naturally. We woke up the next morning and he was just being really weird. I was like, I don't know what's happening. And he was staring at the ceiling. So we were both laying next to each other, staring at the ceiling. And, you know, I'm not allowed to be on my phone, like I said. So I obviously didn't pick my phone up, but he also wasn't on his phone, which was atypical. So I have a pretty aggressive attitude sometimes. I'm just going to say it. And you're going to find that out in the next few minutes as I explain this story. But I was like, you know, or in my head, I was like, I don't know what's going on. So I looked at him and I was like, are you going to just not speak? Or he didn't respond. Okay. Eventually, he rolled over and faced me. So I naturally rolled to face him. So I'm facing him and I'm just looking at him and I'm like, I wonder what he's thinking. Mind you, he said no words. From the second I said, like, he was just staring at the ceiling. I said one thing, no words were spoken. He rolls over, he stares at me. Still no words being spoken. Reaches his hand up and smacks me over the head aggressively hard. I have an attitude. So I go to lift myself off the bed and I go, what the fuck? And as I'm saying, like, fuck, he smacks me again and hits me hard enough where my momentum is going up. Like, I'm lifting myself off the bed and he hits me back onto the bed. Like, it's not a small little tap. It's not like something that shouldn't be taken as a bad thing. Not like a slap on the face, which we've already had happen in the months before. So now he's hurting me and I instantly shut the fuck up. I was like, that's it. I shut up, I zipped my lips, I grabbed all my shit. He rolled over and like hit his face, and I grabbed my stuff and I walked the fuck out. But I had to put my shoes on, obviously. I was wearing like over the knee high boots, and so it takes a second to get them on. And you know, his mom was like, oh, like, how you doing? How are you? She knew I was pregnant, so she was like just talking to me. I was having a conversation with her because I'm not gonna be rude and blatantly ignore you and walk out. So I was just talking to her normal, trying to act like nothing was wrong, nothing was happening. And he heard that and was mad. Mind you, she also had the flu, and I don't get flu shots. So he was upset that I was around her in general, just because she had the flu, I didn't have a flu shot, he didn't want me to get sick, blah, blah, blah. So he came out and he was pissed, and he looked from behind her. So he's standing behind her and he's mouthing, get the fuck out. But just mouthing it, so no words were being said. He's just like, and I looked at him and I was like, I'm speaking to your mother right now. If you don't want me here, that's fine. But I'm speaking to your mother. And he took about, so he lived in a split level, 2 steps, jumped, and was coming at me in the air, clearing the stairs. And my instant reaction, I didn't even really have time to react, but I was like, I put my hands up, and I turned this way. And I was like, don't fucking touch me. And I like cringed with my hands covering, like hovering above my head to protect myself. And he grabbed me and like moved me to the door, because it was a little bit further down like the hallway, moved me to the door, like whipped me around. And by the time I was whipped around, mind you, this is seconds, his mom is down those steps. She jumped them just as fast as he did, like ready to protect me. And then he opened the door, pushed me out, slammed it, done. And I walked to my car, got in my car, drove home, kept it all together. As he was texting me about, you know, I think it was maybe an hour later, he's like, I'm so sorry, I'm an awful person, we obviously can't be together, blah, blah, blah. I somehow, being the manipulated person that I was and thinking that he was the person I needed to have in my life, was like, if you were trying to break up with me, you don't love me, you never loved me, don't act like you care about me if this is how you're like reacting and trying to leave me and like all this stuff. I don't know what I was thinking, but also, can we just like pretend to blame it on pregnancy hormones? I don't know. So I obviously left, you know, that day was a Saturday. So it was Saturday morning, and I went back to school Sunday. I stayed at home all day Saturday, went back to school Sunday. And this was the week before my spring break. So all that week I was at school, and he was kind of being just a little off. And I had said to him, like, Thursday came around and he wanted me to come there Friday. And I had said, you know, I'm not willing to see you again until you get help. And he was like, no, I don't need help. I'll just quit smoking weed, because my problem is that I just love weed. So his reason for hitting me and smacking me and, you know, abusing me physically that day in his house was because he wanted to smoke weed at 10 a.m. Because he knew I wouldn't say that was okay, and that I would get upset about him smoking weed at 10 a.m. So instead, he just started beating me, because that makes it okay in his eyes. Obviously, that's not okay. So I had told him, like, unless you get help, I will not come see you. You will not see me again until you get help. He was like, no, I'm not going to do that, because guess what? I'll just quit smoking weed. That'll solve all the problems. And I was like, no, John, what you don't understand is that weed didn't put a knife in your hand and make you slit your arms open. It's like, weed didn't put your hand in the air and make you slap me over the face, like in the face. Weed didn't make you hit me over the head 2 times. Weed didn't make you shove me out a door. Weed is not the problem. Your head is not right now. And if you want to see me, you need to go see somebody. You need to get help. You need to go see a counselor. You need to do something. Because at this time, I was seeing a counselor at school. And I was lying to her about the fact that he was abusing me. Or had abused me. You know, I saw her once every 2 weeks. And, you know, one time she looked at me and she was like, is he hurting you? And I was like, oh, no. because I knew what she would say or that she'd have to report it just because I was an RA. So like, I know if you tell somebody that you're abused, they have to report it. They have to. It's a law. So I didn't want them to have to report it. So I just kept it to myself. So I was lying to her about it. But I told him, like, no, you need to go get help. I will not see you again until you get help. So I went home that Friday and I didn't see him. It was Wednesday now. And I had kind of texted my friend and was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I don't know if this relationship is worth it anymore. I hadn't told her that he hit me again, but I was like, it's not working. Like I don't think this is worth it. He didn't ask me how I was doing. Like, we were still texting every day, whether I was going to see him or not. But like, I'm now, 16 weeks pregnant, and you're not asking me how I am every day. Not like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Are you okay? What's up? You good? There was no question of like, how am I doing? There was no concern about like me or the baby or anything. And my first ultrasound happened like a couple days after he hit me, and we were on okay terms. So I was like, hey, like, are you coming? And he was like, oh no, I can't. I have a cold. It's like, you can go to the ultrasound if you have a cold. It's not a big deal. He's like, well, I can't go to the ultrasound. I just hit you. It's like, I'm saying go to the ultrasound. It's your child. It has nothing to do with the fact that you're fake sick and are actually what ended up happening. He was at his friend's house getting drunk and doing drugs. So that's why he wasn't on the ultrasound. But my best friend was able to go with me instead. So she got to look at a monitor and see little baby in my belly moving around, spinning around, being all cool in there by herself. So my best friend got to do that with me, which was a really cool thing for her to do. Skipped class and went with me on a Tuesday to my ultrasound appointment. Because she's just a saint and she knows exactly who she is. And God damn it, do I love you. I need you to know that. You are the most amazing person in the entire world, and I love you very much. So spring break, it's Wednesday of spring break. So I've been home for 5 days now, and I'm about to go back on Sunday. And I was at a hockey game with one of my other best friends. Her younger brother was playing hockey. We were at the game together. My phone was in my wallet, in my purse, on the ground of a cement floor of a hockey arena in the middle of a playoff game for a high school team. Like, it's not quiet. So I'm like going nuts. I'm being crazy, not being crazy. We're just excited. We're hanging out, whatever. I look at my phone later and I have 3 missed calls from a random number I don't know. And like one or two voicemails, but it's a random number. I don't know it. So I'm like, that's weird. I didn't have visual voicemail at the time. People have that now. I didn't. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll just listen to those later when I leave the game. And then, the team ended up losing, and it was her brother's senior game. So he was pretty bummed, upset. We were all just hanging out, consoling him, just like after the game, kind of just like spending time, because I've known this family since this kid. I'd been best friends with this girl since this kid was like wicked young. Like, her and I knew each other since we were 9 and 10. So I was 10, she was 9. And so I'd been best friends with her and known her whole family forever. So this wasn't like a weird thing for me to like spend time with her family. And I got a text from him. And he was like, where the fuck are you, John? I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, I went to the hospital and told them I was going to kill myself. And I told them to call you so that they could let me out, but you wouldn't answer, so I had to stay even longer because they couldn't get a hold of you. It's like, first of all, I'm not your emergency contact, so why are they calling me? We're not married. They can't call me legally to talk about your mental well-being. I'm not your therapist. I'm not your emergency contact. We're not married. I can't do that. Like, I don't know what he told them or lied to them about to make HIPAA laws not matter, but he said something to make them want to call me. And so they left me a voicemail saying like, hi, we have John Doe here. He's kind of hanging out saying he's going to hurt himself. But he said that like we could talk to you about his mental state and how he wouldn't hurt himself. Because he walked into an emergency room and was like, hi, I'm going to kill myself. And they swooped him right in, obviously. So they did release him, but he got an emergency therapy appointment for Friday. So 2 days later. And I said, okay, after your first appointment, I will come see you. So he went to his appointment Friday. I went to go see him, and I think somehow we ended up fighting again. I don't know. But he brought himself to the ER and told them he was going to kill himself so that they could give him an emergency therapy appointment instead of just calling a therapist and dealing with it himself. So he got his emergency therapy. I went and saw him, whatever. So I went back to school, and I believe it was either the Monday or the Tuesday after that. So maybe 3 days. And he was supposed to quit smoking weed that morning, and I was in class. It was like 9 a.m. He was texting me, and I'm answering because even though I'm in class, I'm still talking to him. It's like the middle of March now, I think. It's March 21st. It was our 8-month anniversary. And he was like, hey, so, I just changed you to be my emergency contact. So next time, instead of going to hang out with our friends, maybe we just pick up the phone. And I was like, I told you I was sorry, and I know the number for next time, but what a weird thing to say. Like, next time, in case I try to kill myself, you should probably not hang out with your friends ever again and just wait by the phone for me. I'm sorry? I was like, okay. And he said something along the lines, or I think I told him, like, okay, like, is this how you're going to be? Like, you can talk to me when you're calmed down. And he proceeded to send me tons of text messages, like, over and over again, like, fuck you, I'm done with you, fuck you and the baby. Like, you thought you had a soulmate, now your entire life is ruined. Like, you're never going to go anywhere in life because now you're stuck with this baby. Like, I hate you. You thought I loved you. I never loved you. Going on. And I was like, stop texting me. Do not send me another word. Because I had told him many a times, I said, this is the last time you will break up with me. If you break up with me again, I'm done. So this day, he broke up with me and said, we're done. I don't want to be with you. This is over. And I said, good. This is the last time. This is the last time you're breaking up with me. I'm not doing this anymore. We're done. Just kept like reaming me out. And I just stopped answering. I was like, you can take your dignity and go away because I'm done. And I said, by the way, maybe change your emergency contact back. And he goes, oh, I will. Whatever. So then later that day, he texts me. Maybe 4 hours later, I think it was around like lunchtime or something. And he was like, I'm so sorry. I don't mean it. Like, obviously I have some things I need to work out. I have some issues, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. So I was like, great, good for you. I'm still done. Like, that was it. That was my last straw. I'm completely over it. Like, I'm done being broken up with. This is it. That was definitely Monday, because then Tuesday, Wednesday, both days, he's like trying to talk to me, like trying to like warm me up to him. And I was just very like, nope, not giving you hope. I'm not saying anything, because he was like, I'll win you back. I'll get you back. It's fine. I'll make it okay. And I was like, I'm not saying anything. I don't want to be together anymore. I'm not going to give you hope and making you think that you can win me back, because I don't want to be won back anymore. And he was like, no, like, I'll do it. And then then Thursday morning, I'm in class again. And he's like, I can't keep doing this. Like, I'm putting in all this effort and you're not even like making it easy for me. I'm like, yeah, because I don't want to be together. Like, I'm not going to pretend like I want to be with you anymore. Like, I told you I was done, and like, that was it. Like, you kept breaking up with me and like messing with my head, and I'm over it and I'm done. And he was like, well then, like, I'm gonna start dating other people. I was like, okay. He's like, are you gonna start dating other people? I was like, no, I'm pregnant. You think I'm gonna start a relationship right now? Like, no, nobody even knows I'm fucking pregnant. Like, not a single teacher, single person in my class, not even my boss at work. Like, nobody knew I was pregnant, because I didn't tell anyone. My best friend knew, and her roommate didn't even know. Sorry, babe. I love you. I love you. Like, our other best friend, the one I keep referring to as the other best friend. I'm trying not to use any of their names. But they were roommates, and they didn't even know. Like, my bosses didn't know. My coworkers didn't know. My roommate didn't know I was pregnant. No one knew. So, like, you think I'm going to just start a relationship? No. And, like, I'm literally in the middle of killing myself at college right now. Like, stop. So I had to eat lunch early, because at the time I was working at Ethan Allen part-time. So I was actually going to Ethan Allen to work I was getting ready anyways. And he texted me and he was like, just so you know, I blocked you on everything. And I was like, okay. And he was like, or he said something. God, I wish I could remember. Essentially, anyways, I don't know how the progression of the text goes perfectly word for word. Like I said, this was 4 years ago now, and I don't remember. But so we're going down. He's like saying mean things, and I was like, you know what? Like, I said something to him about like, leave me alone. Like, I'm done. Like, you're not a good person. Something, and he goes, come near me and I'll knock you out. I'm sorry. What are you talking about? And then I said something in response about him like not being like, okay, like real cool of you. I'm just your pregnant ex-girlfriend. Like, I'm not sure why you're saying that. And he said, I'll kill you both, referring to me and the baby in my stomach. So he said, I'll kill you both and me. See if I care. If you know domestic violence stories, you know that the story of like an ex-partner coming and killing a person that he was with and all the children, that he was the person he was abusing and all the children and then himself is like a big story. So that threat is not like a small threat. And he'd also been abusing me before. So like, you threatening to kill me and my child that I am pregnant with is not okay. So I was like, do not talk to me, do not do anything. He was like, sent me this another long message, like saying all these nasty things. And I was like, you need to leave me alone. It's like, I'm done. You're not doing this anymore. I'm over it. This is done. This is it. We're done. Do not talk to me anymore. Leave with your dignity. Block me, block my family, block my friends. I don't care what you do. Do not speak to me ever again. Leave me alone. I went to work. I went about my work day. I went back and grabbed my phone at the end of my work day and I looked. He had sent me a text and he goes, hi. So I was just at my therapy appointment. They did diagnose me with depression and anxiety, and they prescribed me some medications. So, you know, I should get on those and everything will be fine and dandy. I'm sorry, do you not remember threatening to murder me and knock me out about 5 hours ago? And now you're just like bipolar freak out and you're just like, oh yeah, I just have depression and anxiety. It's fine. Now I actually have medication, so that's good. You're psychotic. And I remember in that moment I was like, wow, like this is the crazy, unhealthy, absolutely ridiculous nonsense. I mean, obviously sending me Snapchats of you slitting your wrists open and blood pouring off of you. Also crazy, unhealthy, manipulative, awful, abusive, emotionally abusive. But like, you're threatening to kill me 1 minute and then you're like, oh, I got prescribed some medication. Great, right? No, not great. We're still not together. Like, please leave me alone. So for the next month or so, we would only contact like very minimally. You know, I was trying to do the right thing. I'm pregnant with this kid, and I had kind of made the point to say like, hey, if you ever want to have a relationship with this child, it would have to be supervised. It would have to be, you know, in a controlled environment. It wouldn't be with me. Like, you know, go to a like mediator or somebody who would like be in a room with you, and your supervised visitation is just like the technical term. I'm just trying to describe it to you. And he had agreed to that. One weekend I went home because I had an ultrasound, and so I was home, and he had wanted to not know the gender of the baby. So I told him I wouldn't tell him. But then the day of, he wanted to know the gender of the baby and was constantly texting me and was like, oh, I'm going to come to the appointment. And I was like, absolutely not. No, you will not. You will not show up to this appointment. It's like, you do not show up. I don't want you there. I haven't seen you since we broke up, and I don't want you around me. I don't want to be anywhere near you. You will not come to my doctor's appointment. Do not come to my doctor's appointment. And so we didn't, but he was harassing me the whole time, like, you must know the gender by now. Turns out I didn't get to learn the gender in that appointment at all because my little turkey was like, beep, you don't get to see inside these little private areas. So I didn't get to learn the gender, and I had to tell him that. He didn't believe me, but whatever. So that night he had sent me a bunch of messages and was like, I miss you, blah, blah, blah. And I woke up and I was like, no, like it's not happening. And he was like, well, you're going to have to learn to trust me and get over it, because like I'm going to have alone time with the kid. I was like, no, you're not. It's like, yeah, I am. Like, no, we've talked about this. You're only going to get supervised visits. There's no way that I'm going to let you be alone with a child that you threatened to kill. He was like, no, I will get alone time with my child. And I was like, you should have thought about that before you threatened to kill me and the baby that you're so badly wanting to keep control over. And he was like, I don't remember what he said. He said something nasty and was like, I will, in all caps, have alone time. And I was like, stop texting me. If you text me one more time, I'm going to block you. He texted me again and I blocked him. I blocked his phone number. This was April 24th. And the only reason I know that is because it's the day that somebody in my school actually passed away in a tragic car accident. And me being an RA, I was getting calls from my RD and my ARD, and I was like, you need to come back to school, like right now, you need to come. All hands on deck, like all RAs are on constant duty, 24 hours, like for grief and for, you know, just making sure that students aren't feeling like really depressed or like have someone to talk to. And so I had to rush back to school. But it was hard because I was also dealing with like this stuff with my ex-boyfriend. And so it was just a difficult day, but so I believe it was that day. But so I went back down to school, and from there on out, like for the next, I think 2 weeks, it was like crunch time because now it's, you know, about to be finals. And I looked at my phone, I had a voicemail or something, and I like went into my voicemails and I had like multiple voicemails from him, and it was like him calling me, and he's like, I know you blocked me. I just tried to send you a message and it turned green. It wasn't blue. So obviously you're blocking me, and I'm just letting you know, like, you better watch yourself, blah, 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 like threatening me in this voicemail that I unfortunately no longer have, but like threatening me in this voicemail. And I was like, this is not good. And so obviously I'd blocked his number, and then all of a sudden he would start to contact, like all of a sudden these random numbers started calling me, like one from Boston. And I was like, I'm not answering this. And it would be him, and he'd be leaving me more voicemails, and then would be texting me from these random Boston phone numbers. And so I'd be blocking those numbers, and like just this cycle of like him trying to contact me no matter what I did. But like, oh, I forgot a really big portion. The reason I was like done with it was because he was like, I never hit you. So sorry, I don't know why I completely forgot about that. That's like the biggest problem for me, is that he was like, after I said like, you should have thought about that before you know, hit and threatened to kill your pregnant girlfriend. And he was like, I never hit you. What are you talking about? He's like, I never hit you. It was just a tap on your head. I wasn't meaning to hurt you, so like it didn't count. It's like, John, do you understand whether your intention was to make me shut up, hurt me, kill me, make me never speak again? It doesn't matter what the reason behind your hitting me was. You physically abused me. You assaulted me. You hit me over the head so hard that it changed my motion, my direction of motion. My momentum was halted and thrown in an opposite direction. You hit me so hard. No, it doesn't matter what your intention was. It's still abuse. So yes, you did hit me. It wasn't a tap on the head, or else my head wouldn't have hit the pillow again. Like, absolutely not. And in that moment, I realized that the only way that he would be able to see her would be supervised visits. But in that moment, I realized absolutely not. Because if you have no remorse and you do not think that there's something wrong with physically abusing me when I'm pregnant with your child because you wanted to smoke weed at 10 in the morning, then what is going to make you stop from hitting her? What is going to make you, at the time I didn't know it was a girl, but what's going to make you not hit the child? You're going to have this baby who's crying and freaking out, needing your attention, and like requires immediate reaction when you can't do what you want to do. You can't go smoke weed at 10 a.m. because guess what? You have a baby to take care of. What's going to stop you from not hitting her? Or the baby? What's going to stop you from not shaking the baby to keep it quiet? Like, if you have no remorse for hitting me when I'm pregnant with your child, then you'll do it again. And if you'll do it to me, you'll do it to her or the baby. Like there's no way to know that you won't do that to the baby. If you don't feel bad about doing it to me and you're denying that it even happened, then you'll do it again, and you'll do it to everybody else, and you'll do it to another child. It doesn't matter. So in that moment was when I was like, no, like this is done. There will be no visits. There will be no nothing. And that's when I blocked his number. Sorry, I forgot about that. But, you know, from there on, he just kept trying to contact me and would like leave me random voicemails here and there. And I just didn't want anything to do with it. And then it was finals week, and I had an appointment coming up, and I had a voicemail. So I picked up my phone, I listened to my voicemails, and it was a Monday. So that it was like Monday evening, like it was like 8:00 Monday night, and I was going to work on my finals. And I had 2 voicemails, but I know that my phone only said 1, so I knew 1 had to be from him. And the voicemail was saying something along the lines of, it was essentially a goodbye message. So it was like, Caitlin, like, I love you. I'll always love you. I'll always love that baby. You know, I just want to say goodbye, and like, I'll love you forever, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't going to contact him, obviously. So I reached out to his mom. First of all, I panicked and freaked out and called my mom. I was like, what do I do? What do I do? Like, it's been almost 24 hours. Like, he's probably dead now. Like, how do I do anything? She's like, I don't know, just like talk to his mom. It's like, okay. So I sent his mom a Facebook message and was like, hi, like, I got this weird voicemail. Like, I don't know if you want to check on him, just like letting you know. She was like, hi, Caitlin. Yeah, so he did try to kill himself last night, but it wasn't successful, and he drove himself to the hospital today, and he's actually staying in the psych ward for about 2 weeks, you know, to kind of figure out what's going on. The problem, though, is that his mother must have told him that I contacted her, because then, with my phone number memorized, he started calling me from the hospital. And he would call me once every hour. And I was in class. So this was Tuesday now. So like Monday night, I talked to her, whatever, everything's fine. Tuesday, I'm in class all day. And he's, you know, calling me once every hour from the hospital. But the problem is that a hospital outgoing number is a hospital outgoing number. I can't block the number, because then if the hospital ever has to call me for anything else, I can't get the call. So I had to change my phone number. But before I did that, I listened to all the voicemails, and they were just so eerie. I'm not sure what psych ward allows you to call these random numbers, like call somebody all the time. But if like you have issues, I just don't know how he maneuvered his way into getting a phone to call me all the time. I think what I'm assuming is that he was saying he had to contact certain people for like, I don't know, life reasons, because he was just randomly in this psych ward now. But the first message was like, hi, you know, I'm just hoping you're doing well. If you want to contact me, I'm here. Like, this will be my number. Here's the number, blah, 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 blah. And again, blah, 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 blah. Next voicemail was a little less. It was like, I just wanted to talk to you. Just wanted to see how you were doing. If you need me, just call me back. You know the number. And then the last voicemail. So this is once, like, maybe once every hour. No, I think it was once every hour. He just only left 3 voicemails. But the voicemail was like, this is John Doe. You can call me back at any time. My number is blah, 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 blah. And again, blah, 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 blah. It's like the first message was really excited. The second message was a little creepy. And the third message was very creepy. And then that night I changed my phone number and have not been in contact with him since. He's tried to contact my mom maybe once, I think. The week of my due date, he let her know that he was moving to conveniently the town that my college was in, because that's where his dad lived. So he moved to that town for a little while, worked at my best friend's favorite restaurant as a waiter, which was wonderful. At the time, I mean, I was commuting to school, so it didn't matter. Hi guys. So that video kind of cut off pretty quickly, like out of nowhere. So I just kind of wanted to come in and give you like a life update. I did like briefly probably talk about it, but I might have cut it out if this kind of gives the same thing. Essentially, you know, after that time where I changed my phone number, I have never spoken to him again. Like I said, he did contacted my mother once the week of my due date about moving into the town that my college was in, but since then we haven't spoken. So there's been no contact. My daughter's safe. I'm safe. We've lived a happy life. You know, I finished college. I graduated on time. I, you know, graduated and I walked out of there holding my beautiful little girl. She even sat with me for a little bit during the ceremony, and I finished my thesis. I got an internship. I got a job. I moved out. I got an apartment, got another apartment, you know, met Sean, and her and I are doing really well. So there's no danger, no problems, you know. And I just wanted to come in and like, I mean, I know I briefly kind of touched on it real quick, but I do have PTSD. And even with that, I know that like this whole situation had to happen for a reason, and I'm still dealing with some of the mental repercussions of that, but I'm working through it and I'm trying to be a better person. And every day, you know, being in a relationship is really difficult, and it's very triggering for me in general, just being with someone, because my whole relationship was awful, and now it's like a major trigger for me to even be in one. I just want you all to know that like, just because something bad happens to you doesn't mean your life is over, and it actually can get a whole lot better. You know, at one point he had told me that I would never be able to go anywhere in life and my dreams were ruined because I chose to have a child. Well, joke's on him, because I'm doing dandy. I'm doing amazing. I graduated with a 3.86 GPA in college. I'm with a beautiful little girl who's so incredibly intelligent and advanced, and now we are in a wonderful relationship in a 4-bedroom home with, you know, ample opportunity, and we have plenty of resources, and it's just like, you know, we're okay. So to anyone out there who's like questioning what's going on in their life, if they think that things aren't going so well, or even if you're in a situation that you don't want to be in and it's dangerous and unsafe, just know that you need to put yourself first, and it'll be okay. You know, you don't think you'll be able to get past it or be okay without that person, but let me tell you, it is amazing. And it's so nice to be out of that crazy headspace and to be able to be in a more healthy relationship that makes you feel good. And another PSA, therapy's not a bad thing. So if you do think that there's some things going on in your little old noodle that needs some help, then just know that it's perfectly okay. And you're normal. We're all normal. We all are fucked up, right? Let's be honest. We're all fucked up. So you're not different just because you need to talk to somebody about it. Some of us just like to talk through things. I'm one of those people. I need to talk about it. So I just wanted to leave this in here so it's more descriptive, and you know, how I ended the video when I was thinking back about it wasn't very good. So I just wanted to kind of give you a better idea and just know that like, that's my story, but I'm also perfectly fine and okay. And I'm 25 and thriving, and life will be fine. So I love you all very much. I hope you all have a wonderful day, week, I don't know. Like, subscribe, I don't care. Most of my videos are more fun and happy and makeup related, but this one, not so much. Anyways, I love you all.